The brass doorknob was so cold it burned. Rosalind Hartwell had been polishing it for 10 years, since she was 8. Every morning before anyone else in Mercy Hill Orphanage was awake. Her knuckles were red. They had always been red. But this morning was different. This morning was her 18th birthday. And in this orphanage on the dry October prairie of Wyoming Territory in the year of our Lord, 1876-18 meant only one thing. Out. $1 silver, 1 loaf of bread, 1 push through the door she had just polished. She kept rubbing the brass anyway. Back and forth. Back and forth. Because the motion had a beginning and an end. And what came after the end was a silence she did not yet wish to think about. In her pocket, a small gray river stone pressed cold against her thigh. The only thing she had of her mother. The only thing in the world that was hers. She did not know her mother's face. She did not know her mother's name. Reverend Ashford said her mother had abandoned her. Reverend Ashford said many things. Rosa had learned slowly over 10 years of polishing brass to believe only half of what came out of that man's mouth. Maybe less than half. Her breath plumed white in the cold entryway. Outside, a hard frost had silvered the dead grass. The pump handle in the yard would ache when the cook went out for water. The chickens would huddle. The world would tighten its grip and squeeze. She thought about the dollar. The single silver dollar Reverend Ashford would press into her palm in about an hour, when the morning prayers were finished, when breakfast was cleared, when there were no more reasons to delay her departure. She thought about the loaf of bread already wrapped in cloth on the pantry shelf. She thought about the door, this door, the one she was polishing right now. Some doors you open, some doors are closed behind you forever. She finished. The brass gleamed. It did not care who polished it. It would be polished tomorrow by another red-knuckled girl, and the day after by another, and the day after by another. She straightened. Her gray woolen dress was worn smooth at the knees and elbows. She owned nothing else. Just the dress on her back. Just the river stone in her pocket. Just the small bundle she had wrapped last night and hidden under her pillow. And one more thing she could not leave behind. She turned, walked down the corridor, past the chapel, past the dining hall, past the locked door of Reverend Ashford's study where the smell of pipe tobacco always seeped through the cracks, to the small room at the end of the hall, the room where her brother slept. Matthias was already awake. He was sitting on the edge of his cot, fully dressed, his small bundle on his lap. His dark hair was uncombed. His eyes were too big for his face. He was 16 years old and weighed about as much as a sack of flour. He looked up when she came in. He did not smile. He never smiled in the morning. Mornings were when the headaches came. Yes, she said it soft. I'm ready. He stood, slow, like his bones ached. You don't know what you're ready for. Doesn't matter. She crossed the small room, sat beside him on the cot. The mattress sagged under their combined weight. 2 children, 1 mattress, the math of poverty, Reverend Ashford said I could stay until I'm 18 like everyone else. 2 more years. He lied. Rosa. He lies about a lot of things. She turned to look at her brother. Last night after supper, he came to my room. He said the orphanage couldn't afford another mouth. He said I was old enough to leave with you. He said it would be easier this way. Easier. The word landed like a slap. Rosa knew what easier meant. Easier meant Reverend Ashford did not want a 16-year-old boy with a secret in his orphanage. Easier meant the secret was getting harder to hide. Easier meant Matthias was a problem, and the cleanest way to solve a problem was to push it through a door. Matthias. Has it happened again? He did not answer right away. Matthias. Twice. His voice was very small. Last week. Once in the chapel. Once in the kitchen. Did anyone see? The cook. The second time. She told him. She told him. Rosa closed her eyes. There it was. The truth. Reverend Ashford had not been hiding her brother's condition out of Christian charity. He had been hiding it because a boy who had falling spells was a stain on the orphanage's reputation. And the moment the cook witnessed one, the moment the secret left his control, Matthias became a thing to be removed. Not a child. A thing. She opened her eyes, took her brother's hand. His hand was so cold. Listen to me. Whatever happens out there, we go together. You hear me? We don't get separated. We don't get taken in by anyone who'd split us up. We are each other's only blood, and that means something. It doesn't mean anything to him. It means everything to me. He looked at her then, really looked. And for 1 second she saw the boy he had been at 6 years old when she was 8. When they had first been brought to this place by a man in a black coat who did not say where their parents had gone, just dropped them at the gate. Just left. Rosa. Yes. I'm sorry. I'm a burden. She gripped his hand tighter. You are not a burden. You are the reason I do not break. Do you understand me, Matthias Hartwell? You are the reason. He nodded. Once. Slow. She stood. He stood. They went together down the corridor, past the chapel, past the dining hall, to the entryway where Reverend Ashford was already waiting. He stood by the door, her door, the brass one she had just polished. He held a single silver dollar in one hand, a small cloth-wrapped loaf in the other. His face was arranged in the expression he used for funerals and unpleasant deliveries. Pinched, pious, practiced. Rosalind, Reverend, the Lord provides and the world has need of strong backs. He held out the coin. She did not move. Behind her, Matthias stood very still. You will receive a separate dollar, Matthias, when you reach the gate. We do not want to overburden you all at once. A separate dollar, as if a coin were a kindness. Rosa reached out, took the money. Her fingers brushed the Reverend's. His skin was soft. Of course, his skin was soft. He had not polished a doorknob in 30 years. He had not hauled a bucket from the well. He had not scrubbed a floor. His hands had done one thing his entire life. They had taken. She did not say thank you. She turned toward the door, put her hand on the brass, and just then, hooves, hard hooves, fast hooves. Not the slow trot of the milk wagon, not the lazy clop of the postman. A horse ridden hard, stopping suddenly, breathing heavy just outside on the gravel of the drive. Boots on the porch. The door opened without a knock. A man stood in the entryway, panting. Rosa knew him vaguely. The deputy from the next county. A young man with a long face and a worried mouth. He had been to the orphanage once 2 years ago, looking for a boy who had run away. He had not found the boy. He looked at Reverend Ashford. Reverend, Deputy Harris. What is the matter? It's the Brackens, sir. Your sister and her husband, Henry and Margaret. The Reverend's face went still. A fever took them both in the night. Sir. Came on quick. They were gone by dawn. The Reverend did not move, did not blink. For one long moment he was a statue. Then he said very quietly, "The children. Alone, sir. The boy and the girl. They've got no one. The neighbors said you were the only kin." The deputy looked tired. He had ridden through the cold dark and the killing frost to deliver news he did not want to deliver. He did not know what he had just walked into. He did not know that he had handed Reverend Ashford not a tragedy but a tool. Rosa saw it happen. She watched the calculation move across the Reverend's face like a shadow over a wheat field. She watched the grief bloom, and the grief get pushed aside, and the cold arithmetic begin behind his eyes. 2 children. No money. 2 children, his blood, his obligation. 2 children who would need beds and meals and clothes and schooling and a name on a baptismal record for the rest of their lives. And 1 girl about to walk out his door with $1. And her brother who he wanted gone anyway. And a sister and brother-in-law freshly dead who had owned. Their effects. The Reverend said it casual, almost an afterthought. Did they have papers? The deputy fumbled inside his coat. Yes, sir. The neighbor gave me everything. There's a will. There's some land deeds. I'll take them. He held out his hand. The deputy hesitated for only a second before passing over a thin packet wrapped in brown paper. The Reverend turned slightly away from Rosa, opened the packet just enough to glance inside. But Matthias was watching. Matthias was always watching. He saw the corner of one document. He saw the words at the top of it. He saw very faintly in copperplate handwriting the words, Stone Hollow Creek. And then the Reverend folded the packet shut, slipped it into the inside pocket of his coat. Rosa saw none of this. Her eyes were on the Reverend's face. Rosalind. He turned back to her. Providence has spoken. Has it? You are blood kin to those children. The Lord has placed them in your care. You will take them. I have no home. You will find one. I have $1. The Lord provides. They are 8 and 7 years old, and you are 18, a woman grown, and your brother is 16, a man almost made. The 3 of you will manage. She stared at him. She felt Matthias behind her, very still. She felt the dollar in her hand, the bread, the river stone in her pocket. She felt the door at her back, the brass she had just polished, the cold morning beyond. She thought about saying no. She thought about laughing in his face. She thought about telling him exactly what she thought of his providence and his Lord, and his pinched, practiced piety. But the children, she did not know them. She had never been allowed to meet them. Aunt Margaret had written letters once a year, and Reverend Ashford had read them aloud at Easter, with all the orphans listening, as proof of how generous the church was to maintain even the most distant family connections. Rosa had heard her cousin's name spoken every Easter for 10 years. Ezra, Coraline. She had never seen their faces, but she could not leave them. She gave a single stiff nod. Reverend Ashford smiled. It was the worst smile she had ever seen. Wait here. They will be brought within the hour. He went back to his study. The deputy lingered a moment, looking embarrassed, then tipped his hat at Rosa and left. The door closed behind him. Rosa and Matthias stood alone in the entryway. Outside, the horse rode away. Inside, the cook slammed a pot. Somewhere, a child cried briefly and was hushed. The world went on. Matthias said very quietly, "Rosa, yes." He took something from the deputy. Papers. There was something about Stone Hollow Creek. Stone Hollow Creek. A piece of land, I think. I only saw the top of one page. Why does it matter? Because he didn't want us to see it. She looked at her brother. She did not understand, but Matthias had a way of seeing things she missed. He always had. Even when they were small. Even when they were tired and hungry and lost in the dark of the orphanage's long corridors. He noticed. He remembered. All right. We'll think about it later. When we're outside. Outside where? I don't know yet. She squeezed his hand. He squeezed back. The hour passed. It was the longest hour of her life. Longer than any of the 10 years of polished brass. They stood in the entryway, not speaking, not sitting, while the orphanage moved around them. Children went to lessons. The cook hauled water. A bell rang for prayers. And they were not invited. They were already gone. They simply had not yet walked through the door. Then more hooves. Slower this time. A buckboard, not a saddle horse. The wheels crunched on the gravel and stopped at the porch. A man's voice called out. Boots on the porch again. The door opened. The deputy was back, and behind him on the seat of a borrowed buckboard were 2 children. Ezra was 8 years old. He had a stubborn jaw and dark hair cut crooked. He sat very straight. His eyes were dry and watchful, the way a small animal's eyes are watchful when it has decided not to run. Coraline was 7. She was small even for 7. She had a thin face and dark eyes, and she was holding a cloth doll so tightly that her knuckles were white. She did not look up when the deputy lifted her down from the buckboard. She kept her eyes on the doll. They walked in together. Ezra's hand on Coraline's shoulder. Brother and sister, the way Matthias's hand was now on Rosa's arm. The way some bonds are forged in losses too big to name. Reverend Ashford emerged from his study. He looked at the children. He did not kneel. He did not gather them. He simply gestured toward Rosa, as if presenting a piece of furniture. Ezra, Coraline, this is your cousin Rosalind. She will be taking you from this point forward. She is your guardian. Ezra looked at her. He did not speak. He simply looked. It was the look of a child who had already decided that adults were not to be trusted. Coraline did not look at her at all. The Reverend handed Rosa a single flour sack. Inside, she could feel a few small items. A change of clothes for each child, maybe. A comb. Maybe nothing else. He did not offer her another $1. He did not offer her a second loaf. His charity, as ever, had found its limit. They are your charge now. Your sacred duty. My sacred duty. She repeated the words flat. Yes. She looked at him for a long moment. She wanted to say so many things. She said only one. Goodbye, Reverend. She turned, put her hand on the brass doorknob, opened the door, walked out. Matthias followed. The children followed Matthias. The deputy stood on the porch, holding his hat, looking like a man who wished he had been born into any other line of work. Rosa walked down the steps, down the gravel drive, past the gate, onto the dusty road that led away from Mercy Hill, away from the cruel little town of redemption, away from polished brass and pinched piety, and a Lord who provided a single silver dollar to a girl turning 18 on a frostbitten morning. She did not look back. She did not look back. She did not look back. The first mile was silent. Rosa walked at a deliberate pace. Not too fast, not too slow. The children's legs were short. Matthias was already pale around the mouth. Coraline carried her doll. Ezra carried a small wooden horse he had apparently pulled out of his pocket. Matthias carried his own bundle. Rosa carried the flour sack and the bread. The $1 sat in her pocket against the riverstone. She did not know where she was going. She knew only that she was going. The road stretched ahead, brown and dusty, between fields of dead grass that whispered when the wind moved through them. The sky was gray and low. To the east, the prairie opened up. To the west, hills rose toward distant timber. She thought about the town. They could go to the town. They could try to find work. But she had no skills the town wanted. She could polish brass. She could scrub floors. She could not pay for 4 beds. She could not feed 3 children. The town would chew her up by nightfall. She thought about the next county, Cheyenne, the capital more or less. There would be more work there. But it was 3 days' walk, with 3 children. In October, Matthias broke the silence. Stone Hollow Creek. She glanced at him. What? That's the name of the land in the papers. I heard you. I think we should go there. Thias, we don't even know where it is. I do. She stopped walking. The children stopped too. Ezra watched the exchange with sharp little eyes. Coraline pressed her face into her doll. You know, there was a map. 2 years ago. Reverend Ashford had a map in his study. I went in once to get a book. He keeps maps of the county. There's a creek east of town, about 6 miles. It runs through wild country. The town boys aren't allowed to go there. The map called it Stone Hollow Creek. 6 miles. Yes, with the children, before dark. If we walk steady. She looked east. The prairie rolled away into low, brushy land. Somewhere out there, water was running. Somewhere out there, a piece of paper said something about land that had belonged somehow to her aunt and uncle, to her cousins, to her now perhaps by blood, or maybe to no one, maybe to the man who currently claimed it. She remembered something else, something from years ago, the town gossip, the orphan boys whispering at supper. Stone Hollow Creek was on the land of a man named Marcus Blackwell. Mr. Blackwell owned half the county. Mr. Blackwell was a man you did not cross. The boys said anyone caught fishing his creek would be shot, or worse. But the boys also said the land along the creek was wild, unfenced, that a person who knew where to look could find a hollow in the ravine. A place to sleep. A place out of the wind. She thought about it. She thought about it for a long time. She thought about the dollar in her pocket, and the bread that would be gone by tomorrow, and the 4 people who needed her right now to make a decision. East. She said it. Matthias nodded. She bent down to Coraline's level. The little girl flinched. Coraline, listen to me. I know you don't know me. I know I'm a stranger. But I am your cousin, and I am going to take care of you. We are going to find a place to sleep tonight. It will be small, but it will be safe. Do you believe me? Coraline did not answer. She just clutched her doll. Rosa stood up slow. She looked at Ezra. Ezra, will you walk with me? Ezra considered her. How far? A few hours. You got food? Yes, I have bread. We'll eat soon. He thought about it. Then he held out his hand. Not to her, to Coraline. Come on. She seems okay. That was the highest compliment Rosa would receive that day. Maybe that month. Maybe that year. She turned them off the main road, onto a game trail through the tall, whispering grass, east, toward the creek, toward the place that had a name on a paper that a reverend had hidden in his coat. They had not walked half a mile when she heard the second set of hooves. 3 riders, coming up behind them on the main road. Rosa grabbed Matthias's arm, pulled the children low into the tall grass. They crouched. The grass was just high enough, just barely. The riders passed on the road, 20 yards away. 3 men on 3 horses, heavy coats, rifles in saddle scabbards. They were not in a hurry. They were not looking for anyone in particular. They were riding the perimeter of something, the perimeter of land. Blackwell land. Rosa watched them through the grass. The man in front was older, hard face, gray under the hat. The man behind him was a hired hand, slouching in the saddle. The third rider was younger, tall, dark coat, a face that did not match the other two faces. Not hard, not slouching, watchful. He was scanning the ground as he rode, scanning for tracks. He looked toward the place where the game trail met the road. His eyes moved over the grass. His eyes stopped. Rosa held her breath. Caroline made a small sound. Ezra clapped a hand over his sister's mouth, fast. The young rider held very still. He looked at the grass for what felt like a year. Then, slowly, he looked away. He did not call out to the others. He did not point. He did not stop his horse. He simply rode on. His head turned slightly, as if he had seen nothing at all. The three men disappeared down the road. Rosa breathed. Matthias whispered, "Did he see us?" "Yes." "Why didn't he say anything?" "I don't know." But she did know, or she suspected, because she had seen his face before, once, about a year ago, or maybe 2. He had come to the orphanage with a wagon of donated grain. She had opened the door for him. He had been quiet, polite. He had not made small talk with Reverend Ashford. He had simply unloaded the grain and tipped his hat to her as he left. His eyes had been kind, or she had thought they were kind. She had not known his name then. She did not know it now, but she would learn it soon enough. They reached the creek as the sun dipped low. It was a thin, quick ribbon of water, cold, loud over its stones. It cut through a small ravine lined with cottonwoods and thick brush. The banks were steep. The wind was less here. The land held its breath in the hollow. She walked them along the bank, looking. She found it in the failing light, a shallow opening in the rock, more overhang than cave. Maybe 10 feet deep, maybe 15 feet wide. The ceiling just high enough for her to stand at the center. The floor was dry dirt. The mouth was half hidden by a thick growth of currant bushes. It smelled of damp earth. It smelled of animal. It smelled faintly of nothing dangerous. She crawled inside, turned, looked out. The children stood on the bank, small against the tall grass, watching her. "Come in. It's safe." Ezra came first. Coraline followed, holding his hand. Matthias came last, ducking carefully under the low lip of the rock. They sat, all 4 of them, in the dirt, in the half-light. Rosa unwrapped the bread. She broke it into 4 pieces. The children ate without speaking. Coraline's piece disappeared in 3 bites. Ezra chewed slower, watching the cave mouth. Matthias ate half of his and folded the rest in his sleeve for later. Rosa ate a small piece. It tasted of dust. She looked at her 3 companions in the gloom, the 2 cousins she had met that morning, the brother she had carried in her heart for 16 years, the walls of a cave that did not belong to her, on land that did not belong to her, in a country that did not want her. She put her hand in her pocket, closed her fingers around the river stone. It was cold and smooth, and it had been carried once by water. It had ended up in her mother's hand, then in hers, now here, in a cave, by a creek called Stone Hollow. Outside, the wind picked up. Dusk thickened. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called. Matthias stiffened. Rosa, she knew that tone. Matthias, lie down. It's coming. Lie down, now. He lay down. She moved fast, put his head in her lap, held his shoulders, murmured to him soft and low, the way she had murmured to him in the dormitory when they were small, and Reverend Ashford's footsteps had echoed in the corridor. And Matthias had been afraid. The seizure came. It was not a long one. It was not a violent one. It was a small, hard tremor that shook his slight body for a minute, maybe less. His eyes rolled, his jaw clenched, his hands fisted at his sides. Ezra watched, frozen. Coraline hid her face in her doll. Then it passed. Matthias's body went slack. His breathing slowed. His eyes fluttered open. He looked up at Rosa, dazed. Rosa, I'm here. I'm sorry. Don't. I'm a burden. Matthias Hartwell. Listen to me. He listened. You are not a burden. You are the reason I do not break. Do you hear me? He nodded, just barely. Say it back to me. I'm not a burden. Again, I'm not a burden. One more time. I'm not a burden. She closed her eyes for a moment, kept her hand on his hair. When she opened them, Ezra was watching her. Not Matthias. Her. His small face was unreadable. But something had shifted. Something quiet. Something not yet a trust. But not no trust. Coraline had peeked out from her doll. She was watching too. Cousin Rosalind. It was the first words the little girl had spoken to her. Yes, Coraline. Is he going to die? No, sweetheart. He is not going to die. Are we? The question hung in the cave air. Rosa thought about lying, about saying of course not, about promising warmth and food and roofs and futures she could not guarantee. She did not lie. Not tonight. Tonight we have a fire. Tonight we have bread. Tonight we have each other. And tomorrow we will figure out tomorrow. Coraline considered this. Then she nodded. She held her doll out toward Matthias. Just an inch. A small offering from one frightened child to another. Matthias, still on Rosa's lap, smiled faintly. Thank you. He whispered it. The doll went back to Coraline's chest. Rosa looked at the cave mouth. The last of the daylight was bleeding out of the sky. The wind was pushing the currant bushes against the stone. The coyote called again, farther off. She thought about the dollar in her pocket. She thought about the bread half gone. She thought about Stone Hollow Creek and a packet of papers in a reverend's coat and a man named Marcus Blackwell who owned this land and a young rider who had not betrayed them. She thought about her brother's bird-thin chest beneath her hand. She thought about her cousins who were strangers, who were blood, who were hers now whether she had asked for them or not. She did not pray. She did not pray to a Lord who provided $1 silver to a girl turning 18. She decided. She decided that this cave would be a beginning. She decided that the creek would feed them somehow. She decided that the door behind her, the polished brass door, the door of Mercy Hill, the door that had closed on her this morning forever, would not be the last door of her life. There would be other doors. She would build them herself. Outside, the first star pricked through the gathering dark. Rosalind Hartwell sat in a cave with 3 children, on land that was not hers, with $1 to her name. And for the first time in 10 years of polished brass, she was not afraid of the silence that came after the end of a task. Because this task had no end. Because she was just beginning. The first week was a war with hunger. Rosa woke before light every morning because the children needed water, because the fire needed tending, because if she lay still in the dark, the panic would catch up with her, and she could not afford to let it. She moved. She kept moving. The bread was gone by the second day, so she foraged. She remembered things. Old lessons from old Henrik, the orphanage's grim gardener who had taught her without meaning to. Cattail roots, late choke cherries hard and bitter on the tongue, wild rose hips picked carefully, full of seeds and a faint sweetness. She brought back what she could. It was never enough. The children grew quiet, quieter than they had been in the first days. Coraline stopped speaking again. Ezra stopped watching the cave mouth and started watching Rosa, his small dark eyes following her hands, counting the berries, counting the roots, calculating in the small, fierce mathematics of an 8-year-old how long they could survive. Matthias did not say it, but she knew. She knew because he gave half his portion to Coraline every night. She caught him doing it once, twice. The third time she stopped him. Thias, eat. She's smaller. You're sick. I'm not sick. Thias, I'm not sick. She let it go. Because what could she say? Because telling a 16-year-old boy he was sick when he had spent his entire life pretending he was not would be a cruelty she could not stomach. So she ate less herself. She gave Matthias what she had given herself. She told no one. Matthias was the one who saved Coraline's life. It was the 4th day. Coraline had wandered a little ways from the cave, just to the edge of the currant bushes. She had picked something, a red berry, bright, pretty. She had brought it back and was about to put it in her mouth. Matthias was sitting near the fire, sketching in the dirt with a stick. He looked up. Then he was on his feet. He was across the clearing in 3 strides. He knocked the berry out of Coraline's hand. The little girl burst into tears, real tears. The first real tears she had cried since the day they left the orphanage. Big and ragged and shaking. Rosa came running. Thias. What? Pokeberry. What? Pokeberry. It's poison. Even 1. It would have made her sick. 3 would have killed her. Rosa knelt. Coraline was sobbing into her own hands. Matthias stood over them. pale, his own hands shaking now from the speed of the move. Ezra had not moved. He had been sitting on the other side of the fire. He had seen the whole thing. He was staring at Matthias. He stood up, slow. He walked over. He looked at Matthias, up at him. Matthias was tall. Ezra was small. The boy had to crane his neck. "Hey." Matthias looked down. "Yes. You read books." "I did. You know things. From books. Some things." Ezra nodded once. "Okay." That was all. But something had shifted. Rosa felt it in the air around the fire, the way the boy held himself differently when he sat back down, the way he glanced at Matthias sideways, not when Matthias was looking, but when he could observe him at his ease. Matthias was no longer the strange one. Matthias was the one who knew things, the one who saved. Rosa held Coraline until the crying stopped. She rocked her on the dirt floor of the cave, the way she had not rocked anyone since she was 10 years old. And the smaller orphans had cried in the dormitory at night. She had forgotten she knew how to rock a child. Her body remembered. The idea came to her on the 6th day. She had been watching the creek. She watched it every day. She watched the silver flash of fish in its cold, quick water. "Trout," Matthias said. "Maybe cutthroat. Maybe a kind of dace." She did not know fish names. She knew the shapes. She knew they were food. And she could not catch them, not with her hands. The water was too fast and they were too quick. Not with a line. She had no hook, no string. The dollar in her pocket might buy her a hook in the town 6 miles away. But she could not leave the children that long. She had been turning the problem over and over until she remembered the book. It had been one of the books in Reverend Ashford's study. She had been allowed to dust it once when she was 14. A book about the Indian tribes of the plains, about their ways, about their tools. There had been a drawing, a V shape of stones in a creek, a weir, a fish dam. She told Matthias. He thought about it for a long time. Then he stood up. He walked over to a patch of bare dirt by the cave mouth, picked up a stick. He drew. He drew the V. He drew the current arrows. He drew the narrow point at the downstream end. He drew the woven branches that would form the trap at the apex. He drew all of it from memory, of a single sketch, on a single page, of a single book he had read by candlelight at age 14, in a room he was not supposed to be in. Rosa watched. She was looking at her brother's hands, the thin wrists, the careful fingers, the way he had positioned each line on the dirt with the same exactness Reverend Ashford used when he counted coins. A thought caught her. Matthias was not weak. Matthias was strong in a different way. She had spent so many years protecting him that she had forgotten to look at him. She looked now. Can it be built? Yes. By me. By you. With what tools? He looked up at her. With your hands. The work nearly broke her. She started the next morning before the sun. She waded into the creek. The water hit her shins, and the cold went through her like a knife. She gasped. She kept walking. She bent down, picked up a stone, placed it. She picked up another, placed it. She picked up another. By midday, her hands were raw. By afternoon, her feet had gone numb. By evening, she could barely climb out of the water. Matthias wrapped her hands in strips torn from his own shirt. Coraline brought her dry leaves to put in her shoes. Ezra, without being asked, brought her hot water from the fire. The boy did not say anything when he handed her the cup. He did not have to. She drank. She slept hard. The next morning, she went back into the water. Matthias wanted to help. He came to the bank on the second day. He stood watching her for a long time. Then he started to roll up his trouser legs. She straightened in the water. No, Rosa. No, Thias. I can carry stones. You cannot. They are not heavy. It is not the stones. He stopped. He understood. If it happens in the water, I cannot pull you out fast enough. The current would take you. You know it would. He looked at his feet. So I sit on the bank. You sit on the bank. I do nothing. You do not do nothing. You watch the children. You think about the structure. You catch the things I miss. You are my eyes when my hands are wet. He nodded. He did not look up. Thias. Yes. Look at me. He looked. You are not useless. Do you hear me? Matthias Hartwell. You are not useless. You drew the plan. You read the book. You knew the pokeberry. There is no version of this where I do this without you. Do you understand? He swallowed. Yes. Say it. I'm not useless. Again. I'm not useless. She went back to her work. Behind her on the bank, her brother sat down with his stick in his patch of dirt and began drawing the next stage of the dam. On the third night, somebody destroyed it. She came down to the creek at first light to check her progress. She had laid almost 20 feet of stone foundation along one bank. Crude. Slow. Her own hands had placed every rock. She stopped at the water's edge. The stones were gone. Not all of them. Most of them. The line she had built was torn open in 3 places. Rocks scattered downstream. The careful V she had begun to suggest in the stream bed was a wreckage of her own labor. She did not move for a full minute. Then she sat down on the bank. Then she did not cry. Crying would have been easier. Ezra came down to the creek. He had been awake. He had seen her go. He stood beside her, looking at the wreckage of 3 days. He did not speak for a moment. Then he said very quietly, I want to kill them. Rosa turned her head. Her cousin was 8 years old. He had a stubborn jaw. His small hands were curled into fists at his sides. His eyes were wet. But his face was not crying. His face was something worse than crying. His face was rage. Ezra. I want to kill whoever did it. Ezra. Listen to me. I want to kill them. Ezra. She put her hand on his shoulder. He flinched. Then he did not. Then he leaned into her. Just a little. Just enough that she felt it. We are not going to kill anyone. We are going to find out who did it. And we are going to keep building. They'll just do it again. Maybe. Then we'll build it again. Why? She looked at the water, at the broken stones, at the ravine and the cottonwoods and the sky that did not care. Because that is what we do now. We build. They break. We build again. Until something stays. Ezra did not answer, but he sat down beside her. For a long time they just sat, watching the creek, watching the water shoulder past the wreckage of her work. Then Matthias came down the bank. He had been examining the ground. Rosa. What? Footprints. From who? Small. Smaller than yours. Smaller than mine. A child. She stood up. She walked over. The print was fresh. Fresh enough that the bottom of it still held water from a step that had broken the mud surface only hours ago. The shoe was old. The sole was nearly worn through. There was a hole in the heel where a bare toe had pressed the ground. Not a man. Not Blackwell's men. A child. A child living in this country alone. Rosa thought about that for a long moment. Her anger began to bend, began to soften, began to turn into something else. They found him on the 5th day. He was in a hollow tree half a mile up the creek. Ezra spotted him. Ezra, who had been determined to find whoever had broken the dam, who had been searching the brush for 2 days, who had stopped looking like a child who wanted vengeance and started looking like a child who wanted answers. Ezra came running. Rosa. What? There's a boy. Where? In a tree. He's sleeping, I think. He's so thin. She went with him. Slow. Quiet. The boy was curled inside the rotten hollow of a fallen cottonwood. He could not have been more than 10. He was the thinnest child she had ever seen. He wore clothes that had been clothes a long time ago. His hair was dark and matted. His face was streaked with dirt. There was a small knife on a thong at his belt, and a leather pouch that hung empty. He was asleep, or he was unconscious. It was hard to tell. Rosa knelt at the mouth of the tree. Hey. She said it soft. His eyes flew open. He scrambled. He reached for the knife. He had it out before she could move. Stop. He did not stop. His eyes were wild. He was a small animal cornered. The knife was shaking in his hand, but he meant to use it. Stop. Look at me. He did not stop. Look at me. He looked. She let him look. She did not move. She stayed kneeling. She let him see her face, her chapped hands, her dress, her brother and her cousin standing 20 feet back, not coming closer. My name is Rosalind. What's yours? He did not answer. Did you break my dam? He swallowed. You did. Didn't you? His mouth tightened. Why? He still did not speak. She thought she understood. Because the fish in this creek are how you eat. His eyes filled. He did not let the tears fall. But they were there, and we showed up, and started building something that would catch them all. He nodded. Just once. She let out a slow breath. How long have you been out here? He held up his hand. She did not understand at first. Then he showed her his fingers, one at a time. 8. Then he closed his hand and held up 2 more. 8 months. He nodded. Where's your father? He shook his head. Mother. He shook his head. Anyone. He shook his head. She held very still. The knife was still in his hand. He had not lowered it. My name is Rosalind. This is my brother Matthias. That's Ezra. Coraline is back at our camp. We have a small piece of fire. We have a small piece of warmth. We don't have much food, but we're going to build a better dam. And when we catch fish, we'll catch enough for all of us. You understand? All of us. His mouth trembled. Put the knife down. He did not put the knife down. Please. His hand lowered, inch by inch, until the blade touched the rotten wood beneath him. What is your name? He looked at her for a long moment. Owen. Owen what? He shook his head. He did not know, or he did not remember, or it had never mattered. Just Owen. Just Owen. All right. Come back with us. We have a little. You can have some. He came. He did not eat the dried rose hips she gave him. He hid them inside his coat. He had learned somewhere in those 8 months that food in your hand was not food until it was somewhere safe. He drank the hot water she boiled for him. He sat at the very edge of the fire. He did not come closer. But he came back the next day, and the day after that. And then he started helping. He knew things. Things Matthias did not know. Things from a kind of survival that came not from books, but from cold months in the open. He knew where rabbits ran. He knew which willows bent without breaking. He knew by some sense Rosa could not name when the wind was about to turn cold. He showed Ezra how to set a snare. The first rabbit they caught Owen brought to the fire. He set it down in front of Rosa. He did not speak. He did not look up. He just set it down. It was an offering. Rosa accepted it. Thank you, Owen. He nodded once. Then he did not look at her for the rest of the evening. But the next morning he sat 1 inch closer to the fire. She rebuilt the dam from the beginning. Slower this time. More careful. Matthias redesigned it. He moved the V upstream by 10 feet. Into a stretch where the current bent around a natural shelf of rock. The shelf would do half the work. Her stones could do less. 3 days into the rebuild, she gave out. She did not mean to. She did not plan to. Her body simply stopped. She had bent to lift a stone. Her back had locked. Her arms had refused to obey. Her vision had blurred. She had managed somehow to get to the bank, to sit down hard in the cold mud. She put her face in her hands. Behind her, she heard footsteps, small footsteps. She did not look up. Coraline. The little girl had come down from the cave. She did not say anything. She did not announce herself. She simply walked across the bank and sat down beside Rosa. She put a small hand on Rosa's arm. That was all. Just the hand. The small, chapped hand of a 7-year-old child on the arm of an 18-year-old woman, on the bank of a creek, on a piece of land neither of them owned. Rosa did not lift her head. She breathed. She felt the hand. She thought about her mother, about the woman she could not remember, about the river stone in her pocket, and the way it had been smooth and cool against her thigh for as long as she could remember being a person at all. She thought about Coraline, whose mother had died 10 days ago, about how this small girl whose grief was younger and raw than her own had come down to the creek and put her hand on a stranger's arm just because, just to be there. The tears came. For the first time in 10 years, the tears came. Quiet. No sound. Just the wet on her face, and the small hand on her arm, and the water running past and past and past. She cried for her mother, for her father, for the sister and brother-in-law she had not been allowed to know, for Matthias's headaches, for Ezra's fists, for Owen in the hollow tree, for herself, the 8-year-old girl with red knuckles who had begun polishing brass and had not stopped. She cried until she was empty. Coraline did not move. When Rosa finally lifted her head, the little girl was just looking at her, calmly, the way a child looks at the sky. Coraline. Rosa whispered it. Yes, thank you. The little girl nodded, as if accepting a fair payment for a small service. Then she stood up, brushed the mud off her dress, and walked back up the bank toward the cave, where the fire needed tending, where her doll was waiting. Rosa watched her go. Her hands were shaking. But she stood up, and she went back into the water. The old man appeared on the 7th day after that. He was on the far bank. He must have come up through the trees. She had not heard him. He was simply there, suddenly, as if he had grown out of the cottonwoods. He was old, truly old. His face was a map of weather. His beard was long and gray. He wore buckskins. He carried a walking stick. No rifle. He stood with his weight on the stick, and he watched her. She stopped in the water, straightened. She did not run. She did not call out. He watched her for a long time. Then he watched the children, Ezra and Owen on the bank, frozen in their work. Coraline at the fire, watching with wide eyes. Matthias half up from his seated drawing position, holding very still. Then he watched the dam. He was not looking at it like a man assessing a trespass. He was looking at it like a man assessing a structure. His eyes traced its lines. The V, the stone foundation, the willow stakes she was just beginning to weave between. He nodded. just once. He turned. He disappeared back into the trees. Rosa stood in the water for a long time after he was gone. 2 days later, on the bank where he had stood, she found 2 things: a coil of stout, well-cured rope, a small, sharp hatchet. There was no note. There was no name. She picked them up. They were heavy in her hands. The rope was clean and oiled. The hatchet had a smooth haft and an edge that bit her thumb when she tested it. Matthias came down from the cave. He took the hatchet, turned it in his hand, looked at it for a long time. Rosa. What? Look at the haft. She looked. It was carved. Faintly. So faintly she had missed it the first time. 2 letters. Intertwined. A small W and a smaller HW. Matthias said. H. She held the hatchet very still. Thias. Yes. Do you remember our father's name? He thought. I was 3 when he died. I know. I don't remember. Neither do I. They stood on the bank, holding a hatchet with 2 letters carved into the haft, on a creek called Stone Hollow, on land owned by a man who hated them, fed by a stranger who had walked away without speaking. It might mean nothing. Rosa said it. It might. But you don't think it does? No, I don't. Thias, yes. We need to find that old man. She found him 3 days later. It took her that long. She left the children with Matthias. She went west through the cottonwoods, along a trail that was almost not a trail. She walked for 2 hours. She came to a small clearing, a small log cabin, older than any cabin had a right to be, smoke rising thin from a stone chimney, a cured deer hide stretched on a frame outside, a pile of split firewood, neat and exact. She stood at the edge of the clearing. The door opened before she could approach. The old man came out. He looked at her. He did not seem surprised. You found the place. You knew I would. I left you a hatchet, girl. I knew you'd come asking about the letters. Who are you? Caleb Stone. That doesn't mean anything to me. It wouldn't. He came down off the porch. He moved slow. His joints did not love him, but he was steady. He gestured to a stump. She sat. He sat across from her on a log. Your name is Rosalind Hartwell. Your brother is Matthias Hartwell. Your father was William Hartwell. Your mother was Cordelia. The names landed like stones in her chest. She had never heard them before. William. She said it. William. Cordelia. How do you know? Your father was my friend. My father, yes. My father was a man who abandoned us at an orphanage. The old man closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet. Your father did not abandon you, child. What? Your father died in a fire when you were 8 years old. Your brother was 6. Your mother died when you were 6. In 1864. Your father raised you alone for 2 years. Then he died in the fire. That's not it is, Reverend Ashford said. Reverend Ashford lied. The clearing was very quiet. The wind moved in the cottonwoods. Somewhere a jay screamed and was answered. Rosa could not get her breath. "Why?" she said. "Why? What? Why did he lie?" The old man looked at her for a long moment. "Because of the land, child." "What land?" "The land you are standing on. Stone Hollow Creek. 300 acres along this water. Your father bought it from a miner 10 years ago. Your father owned it free and clear. He had the deed in his own hand. That's not it is. That is Marcus Blackwell's land. It is not. Everyone says everyone is wrong, or everyone has been told what Marcus Blackwell wants them to be told. The night your father died, child Marcus Blackwell was the man who reported the fire. The night your father died, the deed for this land disappeared. Within a year, Marcus Blackwell had filed his own paper, claiming the parcel. Within 2 years, he had bought the silence of every man who might have known otherwise. And you, I was not bought. Then why did I not say anything? Yes, because I am one old man with no proof. Marcus Blackwell has money, and lawyers, and the ear of the territorial governor. I have a cabin, and a hatchet, and a memory. I would have died saying it, and no one would have heard me. Until now. Until you. He stood up. He walked into the cabin. He came back with a small wooden box. He set it on the stump beside her. "Open it." She opened it. Inside were 3 letters, yellowed and folded, a small tintype dark with age, of a man and a woman standing stiff in front of a wagon, and a single folded piece of paper. She unfolded it. It was a copy, handwritten. Her father's hand, perhaps. A duplicate of a deed for 300 acres along Stone Hollow Creek, in the name of William Hartwell, dated June of 1866. It was a copy, not the original. A copy might mean something in court. A copy might mean nothing, but it meant something to her. Her hands shook. Her father's name, in her father's writing. She had never seen her father's writing before. Caleb. Yes. My mother. What did she look like? The old man's face softened. He pointed at the tintype. Like that she looked. It was hard to see. The image was dark. The faces were small. A man, tall, with a long mouth. A woman beside him. Her hair pulled back. The woman's hand rested on the man's arm. The woman was holding something. Rosa looked closer. It was a small, smooth river stone. Rosa put her hand in her pocket. Her fingers closed around her stone. Her stone. The same stone. She closed her eyes. She did not cry this time. The crying had already been done. On the bank, with Coraline's hand on her arm. There were no tears left. Just a kind of stillness, just a kind of arrival. Caleb. Yes. Will you come back with me? The old man considered her. Then he nodded. I will come back with you. And help us. I will help you. Even against Blackwell. even against Blackwell. Why? He looked at the cabin, at the deer hide, at the firewood neat and exact that he had been splitting for 30 years alone. Because I should have done it long ago. Then I would not have you. True. Then maybe it is right that you came first. She did not know what to say to that. She put the deed back in the box. She put the box under her arm. She stood up. The old man followed her, slow and steady, to the edge of the clearing. They walked back together, along the trail, through the cottonwoods, toward the cave, toward the children, toward the dam that was almost finished, almost ready to catch its first fish, on a creek that her father had owned, on land that should have been hers all along. But that night before they reached the cave, the snow began to fall. And in the snow came a horse, a tall bay, ridden hard, coming down the lip of the ravine. Rosa grabbed Matthias, pulled the children behind her. Caleb stepped forward. His hand went to his belt where a knife sat in its sheath. But the rider was alone. It was the young man, the one who had not betrayed them on the road. He stopped his horse at the edge of the clearing. He dismounted, slow. His face was swollen on one side. His lip was split. His eye was going dark. Someone had beaten him. Miss Hartwell. His voice was rough. How do you know my name? Caleb knows everything. He almost smiled. He did not let it land. My name is Pierce Blackwell. She did not breathe. Blackwell. Marcus Blackwell is my father. Behind her, Matthias went very still. What do you want? He reached into his coat, slow. He pulled out a folded paper. He held it out. My father knows you're here. He knows about the dam. He knows you think you have claim to this land. He's going to move against you. He's going to send the sheriff. He's going to burn this camp if he can find a reason. Why are you telling me this? Because 12 years ago, I was 13. I was awake one night, reading in my room. I heard my father shouting. There was a man in his study. I heard the man's voice. I heard my father's voice. I heard a thing being slammed. The man left. The next morning there was a fire on the other side of the county. The man who had been arguing with my father was dead. 2 children were taken away to an orphanage. I knew, not everything, but enough. For 12 years I have walked the halls of my father's house with enough, and I have done nothing until now. He held the paper out farther. There's a man in Cheyenne. His name is Mortimer Hayes. He was the territorial clerk 12 years ago. He handled all the land filings of that period. He kept his own records, personal records, apart from the official ones. I believe he knows what happened to your father's deed, and he would tell me. I do not know. He is an old man. He is a frightened man. But you, Miss Hartwell, are not the kind of person who is easy to refuse. She took the paper. Why are you helping me? He touched his swollen face, winced. My father found out I gave you grain last year. He found out I didn't report you on the road. He found out I've been watching to make sure you were safe. He told me tonight that you are a stain, that you are a liar, that you are trying to steal what is his. And then he hit me, and I realized I am 25 years old, and I have been afraid of him my entire life. But I am not afraid anymore. He turned. He mounted his horse. Go to Cheyenne, Miss Hartwell. Go quickly. Go in 3 days. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow my father will be watching the road. In 3 days he will be in town. The road will be clearer. He looked at her one more time. You are not crazy to do this. You understand. People will say you are. People will say a girl of 18 with 3 children should not. Should not. I understand. You are not crazy. Thank you. He rode away. Into the snow. Into the dark. Rosa stood holding the paper with Mortimer Hayes' address written in Pierce Blackwell's hand. Caleb came up beside her. The boy is brave. Or foolish. Both, perhaps. She looked at the old man. Will you take me to Cheyenne? I will. In 3 days. In 3 days. She folded the paper, put it in her pocket beside the river stone. The snow kept falling, and somewhere out there in the white dark, Marcus Blackwell was pacing the length of his parlor, pouring whiskey he would not drink, planning. The winter that followed was the hardest of her life. It was also the one she would remember most clearly when she was old. 3 days after Pierce's visit, Rosa rode to Cheyenne with Caleb. Matthias stayed at the cave with Ezra. Coraline, Owen. He had argued. He had wanted to come. She had refused. The trip was 30 miles. The cold was deep. He could not afford the journey on his thin frame. He was angry with her for 2 days before she left. Then on the morning she rode out, he walked her to the edge of the clearing. He hugged her hard. He did not say anything. He just hugged her. She rode behind Caleb on his old pack horse. The plains were white. The sky was gray. The air was the kind of cold that hurt the bones in your face. They reached Cheyenne on the second night. Caleb knew a liveryman who let them sleep in the loft. In the morning, she walked alone to Mortimer Hayes' house. It was a small clapboard house at the edge of town. The paint was peeling. The windows were thick with the dust of years. She knocked. Nothing. She knocked again. The door opened. A small old man stood in the gap, maybe 70. Spectacles, white hair, a thin face. He looked at her like a rabbit looks at a hawk. Mr. Hayes. I do not give interviews. I am not a journalist. I do not receive callers, Mr. Hayes. My name is Rosalind Hartwell. He stopped breathing. She saw it. He stopped breathing for 1 full second. Hartwell. He whispered it. William Hartwell was my father. He did not move. Mr. Hayes. May I come in? His eyes were wet. He stepped back. He let her in. The house was full of paper, stacks of paper on every surface. shelves of paper, folders of paper. He had been a clerk all his life, and now he was a retired clerk, and the paper had followed him home. He did not offer her tea. He did not offer her a chair. He stood in the middle of his cluttered parlor, and he looked at her with the face of a man who had been waiting 12 years for a knock. "How did you find me?" "Pierce Blackwell." His mouth tightened. "He has more decency than his father." "Yes. You came alone." "I came with an old trapper. He waits at a livery." "Why are you here, Miss Hartwell?" She took the river stone out of her pocket. She set it on the small table beside her. She did not know why she did that. It was an instinct. The old man looked at the stone. His face crumpled. He lowered himself slowly onto a small wooden chair. He put his face in his hands. His shoulders shook. Just once. Just one shudder. Cordelia's stone. He whispered it. She did not breathe. "I gave that to her. When she was 10 and I was 11. We were children together in Ohio. Before any of this, you knew my mother. I loved your mother." The room was silent. "She did not love me. She loved your father. He was the better man. I knew that. I always knew that. When she married him, I helped them load their wagon. When they came west, I kept track of where they went. When your father bought his land along Stone Hollow Creek, I was the clerk who recorded the deed. With my own hand. I wrote it. I filed it." He stood up. Slow. He walked across the parlor to a wooden chest in the corner. He knelt. His old joints cracked. He opened the chest. He took out an iron strongbox. He took a key from a chain around his neck. He unlocked the box. He took out a single sheet of paper, sealed with wax, in a leather sleeve. He stood up. He turned. He held it out. "This is the original deed." Her hand shook as she took it. "You had it. I had it for 12 years. For 12 years. Why?" His face broke. "Because Marcus Blackwell came to me one night, a week after your father died, and offered me $1,000 to lose it. I did not lose it. I told him I had lost it. I took the money. I kept the deed. I've hated myself every day since. You took his money. I took his money. I bought this house. I have lived in this house with this paper for 12 years. You let him think you had destroyed it. I let him think. Why did you not come forward?" "Because I was afraid, Miss Hartwell. Because Marcus Blackwell is a man who does not lose. Because I was a coward. Because I told myself I was waiting for a sign. And now." He looked at her. He looked at the stone on his table. He looked at the daughter of Cordelia in his parlor. Now the sign has come. He pushed the paper into her hands. He kept his hands on hers for a moment. "I will come to court with you. I will testify. I will say what I did. I will lose this house and everything in it. I will probably go to prison. Mr. Hayes, I know. That is what justice looks like. I know. I am not here to forgive you. I am not asking you to. Good. She took the deed. She put the stone back in her pocket. She walked to the door. She stopped. She turned. Mr. Hayes. Yes. Did my mother ever speak of me? He did not answer for a moment. She spoke of nothing else. In every letter she ever wrote me, she spoke of you and the boy. She said you had her hands. She said the boy had William's eyes. She said when she watched you sleep, she could not believe she had been allowed something so good. Rosa closed her eyes. She let it land. She opened her eyes. Thank you. She walked out of his house. She walked back to the livery with the deed inside her coat. She did not cry until she was on the horse, riding north with Caleb behind her, and the wind taking the tears off her face before she even knew they were coming. They returned to the cave on the 4th day. The children were safe. The fire was still burning. Matthias had kept them fed. Barely. But fed. Rosa held him for a long time when she dismounted. You did it. We did it. She showed him the deed. He held it like it was made of glass. That night Marcus Blackwell came. He came with 5 men, on 5 horses, carrying torches. They came down the lip of the ravine in the dark. The snow had stopped, but the ground was still white. Rosa woke to the sound of hooves. She grabbed Matthias, shook him awake. Get the children to the back of the cave. Rosa, now. He moved. Caleb was already at the mouth of the cave, his rifle in his hands. The riders stopped 20 feet from the cave. Marcus Blackwell dismounted, slow, deliberate. He was a tall man, broad in the shoulders. His face was hard, and his eyes were harder. He looked at the cave, at Caleb, at Rosa stepping out into the firelight. You. His voice was cold. This is my land. You are trespassing. You have until dawn to leave, or I will remove you myself. Rosa stepped forward. This is not your land. You are a liar. I have the deed, the original deed, in my father's name, witnessed by the territorial clerk, sealed and dated June of 1866. You have nothing. I have everything. Behind Marcus, one of the riders shifted. Rosa saw him. It was Pierce. His face was worse than it had been 3 days ago. His eye was swollen shut now. His jaw was bruised dark. But he was there. He had come with his father. Marcus saw her looking. He turned. He looked at his son. Get down. Father. Get down. Pierce dismounted, slow. Marcus walked toward him, stopped in front of him. You told her, didn't you? Pierce did not answer. Marcus hit him. Open hand. Across the face. Pierce staggered. Did not fall. You are not my son anymore. Pierce straightened. He looked at his father. Good. Marcus turned back toward Rosa. His face was red. You will leave this land by dawn, or I will burn you out. And then another voice. No, you will not. Everyone turned. A figure was walking down the bank, slow, leaning on a cane. It was Reverend Ashford. He was thinner than Rosa remembered. His face was gray. He walked with a kind of stoop, as if something in him had broken. He came to the edge of the firelight. He stopped. He did not look at Rosa. He looked at Marcus. Mr. Blackwell, you will leave these people alone. Marcus stared. Who are you? I am Ezekiel Ashford. I was for many years the pastor of Mercy Hill Orphanage in Redemption. I am the man who raised these children. I am the man who took your money for 10 years to keep certain records sealed. And I am here tonight to tell you that I will no longer do it. I will go to the territorial court in the spring. I will testify. I will say what I know. I will say what you paid me to hide. And you will lose. Marcus did not move. You are a fool, old man. Perhaps. You have no proof. I have 10 years of ledgers. I have letters in your hand. I have the dates. I have the amounts. And I have a conscience that I can no longer carry. Marcus looked at him for a long moment. Then he turned. He mounted his horse. This is not over. It is. Reverend Ashford said it quiet. It is over, Mr. Blackwell. You lost the day you killed William Hartwell. You simply did not know it yet. Marcus spurred his horse. He rode up the bank. The other men followed, except Pierce. Pierce stood in the clearing, looking at Rosa. Thank you. She said it. He nodded once. Then he mounted his horse and rode away. Reverend Ashford stood in the clearing, not moving. Rosa walked toward him. She stopped 5 feet away. Why? He looked at her finally. Because for 6 months, I have heard the story of the girl by the creek. People in the town tell it. They tell it to each other in the post office. They tell it to me in my own parlor. They tell it without knowing that I know who she is. Without knowing that I am the one who put her there. With $1. He stopped. His voice broke. I cannot carry it any longer. That is all. I am not a brave man. I am not a good man. But I cannot carry it any longer. Rosa did not speak. The Reverend turned. He walked back up the bank, into the dark. The winter passed slow. The dam held. The fish came. Not many, but enough. They ate. They survived. Caleb stayed. He built a small lean-to at the south end of the clearing. He showed Matthias how to set traps, how to read the weather, how to survive. Owen learned to speak, slowly, not in sentences, just in pieces. But he spoke. Coraline kept the fire, every morning, every night. Ezra grew an inch. Rosa measured him against the cave wall. She marked it with a piece of charcoal. Matthias had 2 seizures that winter. Both were small. Both passed, and each time Coraline brought her doll and sat beside him until he woke. Rosa did not know when she started to believe they would make it, but somewhere in the long, cold months between December and March, she started to believe. The trial was in late April. The snow had melted. The creek had thawed. The first green was pushing through the dead grass. Rosa wore her gray woolen dress, the same one she had worn the day she left Mercy Hill. She washed it in the creek. She mended the holes. It was still worn at the knees and elbows, but it was clean. Matthias came with her. Caleb came. Mortimer Hayes came. The children stayed at the cave with Owen watching them. The courthouse was a small wooden building in Cheyenne. The room was packed. People had heard the story. The girl by the creek. The man who owned half the county. The orphan who said she had a deed. They wanted to see. Marcus Blackwell sat at a long table with 3 lawyers, all in dark suits, all with hard faces. Rosa sat at a smaller table with Caleb beside her, and Matthias on her other side. The judge was a tall, thin man with white sideburns. He looked tired. The trial took 2 days. Blackwell's lawyers attacked everything. They said Mortimer Hayes was a senile old man. They said he had been bought. They said the deed could be a forgery. Mortimer Hayes sat in the witness chair and told the truth. He told it slow. He told it clear. He did not flinch. On the second afternoon, the doors of the courtroom opened. Reverend Ezekiel Ashford walked in. Rosa turned her head. She did not believe what she was seeing. He came down the aisle. He stopped at the railing. He did not look at her. He looked at the judge. "Your Honor, sir, identify yourself." "My name is Ezekiel Ashford. I was for many years the pastor of Mercy Hill Orphanage in Redemption. I am the man who raised Rosalind Hartwell and Matthias Hartwell from the time they were children. I have come here today to give testimony." Blackwell's lawyers stood up. They started to object. The judge raised a hand. "Sir, are you under subpoena?" "No, Your Honor." "You come of your own will?" "Yes, Your Honor." "And you understand that what you say here will be sworn testimony with all the weight of the law?" "I do." "Be sworn in." He was sworn in. He took the stand. He still did not look at Rosa. The judge said, "Tell us what you know." Reverend Ashford folded his hands in his lap. He spoke. He spoke for nearly an hour. In a flat, dry, careful voice, he told the court that Marcus Blackwell had paid him money. He told the court the dates. He told the court the amounts. He told the court that he had been instructed to keep certain records sealed. He told the court that the records concerned the parentage of 2 specific orphans. He told the court that the records included the existence of property held in their father's name. He told the court that he had complied. For 10 years, he had complied. He told the court that he had pushed Rosalind Hartwell out of his door on her 18th birthday with a single dollar and a single loaf of bread. He told the court that he had pushed her brother out with her 2 years earlier than the orphanage's policy because the boy had a medical condition that he did not wish to acknowledge. He told the court that he had, on that same morning, sent 2 more children with her, cousins, his own dead sister's children, whose inheritance he had also helped to suppress. He told the court the names of the inheritances. He told the court the location of Stone Hollow Creek. He told the court that he had done these things knowingly. Why? The judge asked. Do you come forward now? Ashford looked finally at Rosa. His face was wet. Because for 6 months I have heard the story of the girl by the creek. People in the town tell it. They tell it to each other in the post office. They tell it to me in my own parlor. They tell it without knowing that I know who she is, without knowing that I am the one who put her there. With $1. He stopped. His voice broke. I cannot carry it any longer. That is all. I am not a brave man. I am not a good man. But I cannot carry it any longer. He reached into his coat. He pulled out a letter, yellowed, folded many times. And there is one more thing, Your Honor. What is it? This is a letter from Cordelia Hartwell, the mother of Rosalind and Matthias. She wrote it to me 3 days before she died. She asked me to give it to her daughter when the girl was old enough to understand. I never gave it. He unfolded the letter. His hands shook. She wrote, Reverend Ashford, if you are reading this, then I am gone. Please tell Rosa that she has my hands. Tell her they are strong hands. Tell her they were made to build. Not to polish brass for any man. Tell her to build. Tell her to build doors. Tell her some doors are closed behind us, but the best doors we build ourselves. Tell her I held a stone from the creek the day she was born. Tell her to hold it when she is strong enough. Tell her it is hers. Tell her everything is hers, if she is brave enough to take it. The courtroom was silent. Ashford folded the letter. He held it out toward Rosa. I should have given you this 12 years ago. I am sorry. Rosa stood. She walked forward. She took the letter. Her hands were shaking. She did not look at Ashford. She walked back to her table. She sat down. Matthias put his hand on hers. The judge said, You may step down. Ashford stepped down. He walked out of the courtroom. He did not look back. The judge ruled the next morning. The land along Stone Hollow Creek, 300 acres, belonged to Rosalind and Matthias Hartwell. The deed was good. The original document witnessed by Mortimer Hayes's testimony stood. Marcus Blackwell was bound over for charges of fraud, perjury, conspiracy. Reverend Ashford was bound over for accessory. Mortimer Hayes faced his own charges. He pled guilty to all of them. He did not contest a single one. Outside the courthouse, the spring sun was high. Rosa came down the steps with her brother and Caleb at her sides. The deed was inside her coat. Her hands were steady. Reverend Ashford was waiting at the bottom of the steps. He stood with his hat in his hands. She stopped 2 steps above him. He did not speak. She did not speak. Matthias went very still beside her. She looked at the man who had raised her. In his way, the man who had taught her that providence was a transaction, the man who had given her $1 and a loaf of bread on the morning of her 18th birthday and called it grace, the man who in the end had told the truth, not because she had asked him to, Not because he was forgiven, just because he could not carry it anymore. She thought about every word she could say to him. She thought about cruelty. She thought about coldness. She thought about turning her back and walking past him as if he were a stone in her path. She thought about it for a long moment. Then she said, in a voice that was clear and not loud, "I do not forgive you." He nodded. "I may someday. Not today." He nodded again. "But I came here to tell you one thing." He waited. "You do not have power over me anymore." She let it sit between them. "You did for 10 years. You decided when I ate, when I slept, when I worked, what I knew, what I did not know, who my parents were, who I was. You decided. You are not deciding anymore. I am." His mouth opened. It closed. "I am taking my brother home now, to our land. We are going to build a house there. We are going to live a life there. You are not going to be in any part of it." She came down one step. "That is not your loss. That is mine. And I am letting it go, because it is the only way to keep it from rotting inside me. Do you understand me?" "I understand. Goodbye, Reverend." She walked past him. She did not look back. 4 years later, the summer of 1881, Rosa stood on the porch of a house. It was not a large house. It was solid, squared timber, daubed with mud and whitewash. A stone chimney at one end, a hand-pumped well in the yard, a small barn beyond, with a workshop attached where Matthias now ran a small forge. Their father's trade, returned to its line. Matthias was 21. He had grown 3 inches in 4 years. His seizures had become rare. He had learned with Caleb's help, and a doctor in Cheyenne, how to live with them. He was not cured, but he was a man now. A man who worked iron with his own hands and kept a record of the world in a leather book that had grown too thick for one binding. Ezra was 13. He still had the stubborn jaw. He had grown into it. He worked a small carpentry bench in the barn. He had built 3 chairs already that they used at the table, and a 4th that he had given to Caleb for the cabin. Coraline was 12. She kept a vegetable garden behind the house and a small herb garden by the kitchen door. She still had her doll. The doll lived on a shelf in her room now. She no longer carried it, but she had not given it up. Owen was 15. He was a shepherd. They kept 12 sheep. He moved them along the bottoms of the creek with a careful, watchful confidence that he had learned in his way. In the 8 months he had spent alone in the rotten trees, he still slept with his door open. Old habits. He still called Rosa ma'am sometimes. When he was tired, he had stopped calling her miss. Caleb lived in a small cabin at the south end of the property. He was 80 now. His knees had finally given up on him. Rosa had built him the cabin herself, with Matthias and Ezra's help. The year before, Caleb pretended he did not need it. He moved into it the day it was finished, and never moved out. On a summer afternoon in 1881, Rosa stood on her porch, looking out toward the property. The house she had built, the barn, the well, the garden, the sheep grazing by the creek, the world they had made. She was about to go inside when she saw movement at the gate. A figure. A woman. Old. Maybe 70. She wore a dark traveling dress. She carried a small carpet bag. She was looking at the house, at the barn, at the creek beyond. She was crying. Rosa came down from the porch, slow. The woman saw her, and Rosa saw her face. It was her mother's face, older, but the same bones, the same eyes. Rosa could not breathe. The woman walked toward her, slow. She stopped 5 feet away. "You are Rosalind." "Yes. I am Abigail, your mother's sister." Rosa did not move. "I thought you were dead. I was hiding. For 15 years, I was hiding from Blackwell." "Yes, he died last year. I know. That is why I came." The woman's voice broke. "I have been living in Montana Territory. I have been waiting. I have been watching the papers. When I heard he was dead, when I heard about the trial, about you, I came." Rosa did not know what to say. "I should have come sooner. I should have found you. But I was afraid. And I am sorry." She reached into her bag. She pulled out a small cloth bundle. She held it out. "This was your mother's. She gave it to me the night before the fire. She said if anything happened to her, if anything happened to William, I was to keep it and give it to you when you were old enough." Rosa took the bundle. Her hands were shaking. She unwrapped it. Inside was a second river stone, small, smooth, gray, exactly like the one in her pocket. "Your mother held that stone the day you were born. She held it when you took your first breath. She said, 'This one is hers. When she is strong enough, she will hold both. One from me, one from herself.'" Rosa looked at the stone in her hand. She put her other hand in her pocket. She pulled out the first stone. She held them both, one in each palm. 2 stones, 2 hands. One from her mother, one from herself. The woman, Abigail, was crying openly now. Your mother would be so proud. She would be so proud. Rosa closed her fingers around the stones. She looked at her aunt. "Come inside. Supper is ready." Abigail nodded. She could not speak. They walked together up the path, toward the house, toward the light and the warmth and the voices of children calling that the biscuits were done and the table was set. Rosa put both stones in her pocket. She felt their weight. She felt their smoothness. She felt the way they clicked against each other as she walked. One from her mother, one from herself. Inside the house, Abigail told stories. Stories about Cordelia as a girl, about William, about how they had met, about the wagon journey west. The children listened. Matthias listened. Even Caleb came in from his cabin to listen. And Rosa sat at the head of the table, with her family around her, with 2 stones in her pocket. After supper, after Abigail had been shown to a room, after the children had gone to bed, Rosa walked down to the creek. She did this most evenings. It was her hour. The path was worn smooth. She came down to the bank. The dam was still there. It was old now, older than 4 years had any right to make it look. The stones were green with moss. The willow weave had gone back to wild willow, and birds nested in it. The trap was gone. They had taken it apart years ago. The fish came up the creek in season, and they took what they needed, and the rest they let pass. The dam had become a thing that was not a dam. It had become part of the creek. She sat down on the bank. She took out the 2 river stones. She held them in her palms, 1 in each hand, warm from her body, smooth. The same smooth gray they had always been. She thought about her mother in the tintype, with one of these stones in her hand. She thought about her father's deed, framed now on the wall of the front room. She thought about Matthias at the forge, about Ezra at the bench, about Coraline in the garden, about Owen with the sheep, about Caleb at the door of his cabin, sitting in the sun, about Abigail in the house, asleep in a room that had been built by Rosa's own hands. She thought about Reverend Ashford. He had served 3 years. He was out now. He lived in a small town somewhere east of the territory, doing menial work. She did not know where exactly. She did not want to know exactly. She had not forgiven him. She had not stopped not forgiving him. She had simply let him go on living his life, while she lived hers, on a piece of land where his name was not spoken. She thought about Marcus Blackwell. He had died in prison the year before. She had felt nothing when she heard, or she had felt something. She had felt a small, tired sigh of a thing finishing. And then she had gone back to weeding the garden with Coraline. She held the stones. She did not put them in the dam. She had thought about it, about making a gesture, about leaving the stones in the wool, mixed with the others, so that her mother's hand and her own hand would join the hands of every child who had ever placed a stone in that water. But it was not the kind of gesture she liked. She liked the stones in her pocket. She liked carrying them. She liked knowing that when she was old, when her own hands were spotted and slow, she would still reach into a pocket and find 2 small, smooth gray weights, one that her mother had held, one that she herself had carried through everything. She slipped both stones back into her pocket. She stood up. The evening light was gold on the water. A wood thrush sang from the cottonwoods. A breeze moved the new willows. She walked up the path. She did not look back at the dam. She did not need to. It was there. It would be there tomorrow. It would be there when she was an old woman. It would be there when she was gone. And Matthias was gone. And the children had children of their own, who came down to the bank in their own time, to sit, to think, to lay their hands in cold water, On a creek their grandmother had once built a wall across with her bare hands. Some doors were closed behind a person forever. Some doors a person opened. Some houses no one gave you. You had to build them yourself. Out of stone, out of water, out of the children you decided against all reason and all advice to call your family. Dignity was not a thing anyone gave you. Dignity was a thing you built, stone by stone, day by day. Each time you chose to stand back up. She reached the top of the bank. The house was ahead, warm light in the windows, smoke rising thin from the chimney, somewhere in the ground beneath her feet, in the stones of the dam, in the walls of the house, in the iron Matthias shaped, in the wood Ezra carved, in the plants Coraline grew, in the sheep Owen watched. Her hands were everywhere, the hands that were made to build, not to polish brass, the hands that had opened doors and closed doors and built doors that had never existed before. Rosalind Hartwell walked toward the house she had built. She opened the door. She stepped inside, into the warmth, into the light, into the voices of her family. She closed the door behind her, not because it was an ending, because it was hers.